Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another Yes Japan Daily. This is Yes Japan Daily number 60. Number 60. Let me even turn a light on in memorial. In just, is that the word I want to use? In memorial of daily number 60. You know what that is? I'm thinking Japanese. 60回目の記念に. I don't know if we say it in English, but it is number 60. Number 60. That means it goes on YouTube. Woohoo! Alrighty. Today's topic is something that, oh my gosh, I really wanted to do yesterday. But the server I just moved everything over. Things are broken. They're still broken. I just got everything working just perfect enough to do it daily. And then it's back to the grind to try and fix the problems. So bear with me. By the time you see this, it'll probably all be better. Today's topic is powerful Japanese grammar you should know. Or need to know. One of the two. Whatever I end up titling it. But these are things that I'm ready for another book series after I get done with Japanese from 04, because Japanese from 04 is just a bunch of really high level grammar. But I think every day about, well, what are the basics? What's the quickest way you could learn Japanese up to like stage 1, stage 1. That's what I want, right? How can you get the basics really quick? Well, I think there are some key things you need to learn. This is going to be an ongoing series. I don't know how many it'll be. I think at least 3. Today is number 1. We're going to talk about the things that you absolutely need to know right away, that the things you should focus on. Because you can spend a lot of time focusing on totally different branches of Japanese and not increase your potential, right? So let's get into what I'm talking about. Before I do that, though, for those of you who have a higher level Japanese, or for those of you who just want to hear some Japanese, I recommend you start watching Eigo Egg. Eigo Egg is a small series that I do here on the same day that we do the dailies. The first thing I do before a daily is I shoot an Eigo Egg, which is where I teach English concepts to Japanese people. And then it goes right up on YouTube at youtube.com/Eigo Egg. And it's free. Right now, I don't know how I'm going to make money with it, but it's something I really want to do, and I'm really enjoying it. I'd like you guys to be involved and tell your Japanese friends about it, because our goal is to make a community of Japanese people studying English and Western people who speak English to learn Japanese. We want that kind of a community where we can all get together and have friendships that will last a lifetime. Okay. Powerful things. The first things you need to know, this is not in any order, but this is one of the lower level things you need to know. It's these little things right here. Ha, ga, ni, mo, ka, no, o. Obviously, at this point, you already know hiragana. Just get that out of the way. If it's too much for you, use the progressive version of Yes Japan or these books down here. They teach you like 5 or 10 symbols every lesson, and they just replace them as you go through the lessons. But what these are the particles. They're called particles. And they come at the end of words. They're like attached to a word, and they change what that word is. We often on Yes Japan call them markers, because they mark a word to do something. So let's just look at, there's more than these. There's not a ton more, but there are more markers or particles. And let's just look at them. Wa and ga. Let me point this out, first of all. Wa and ga are the most controversial markers, because they both almost always do the same thing. There's certain times when we use one over the other, but for the most part, if you use wa or ga any one time, the meaning will not change. It'll just sound maybe a little bit weird. That's about it. But what wa and ga do is they mark the topic or subject of a sentence. You'll hear people say wa is the topic marker and ga is the subject marker, and ga is used to stress, but then there's times when wa can use to stress, and there's actually books written, large segments of many books I've seen, dedicated to wa and ga. There's no easy way to define wa and ga. So let's just say this. It marks the thing you're talking about. For example, watashi wa, getting ready to talk about me, George desu. There's a little thing that's true that we write that is part of the Yes Japan grammar. It's everything attached to the wa, or everything before the wa, is generally the topic or part of the topic. And everything after the wa is a question or statement about that topic. So it revolves around that. It's almost like an is. It really is. Or an am. Is, am, are, was. It means all, like, that's sort of what it covers in the sentence, you know? So, I am George. Watashi wa Georgie. Although theoretically, des does that. But we're going to get to that in a second. So wa and ga both have their functions. I typically like to give people two really solid rules that make sense with wa and ga. The first thing is, you can never have wa immediately follow a question word. Ever. It's just a rule that doesn't fail. Okay? You can't say dore wa. You have to say dore ga. You can't say dare wa. Who? It's dare ga. Okay? That's just a rule. You can't break it. There's another rule of thumb that if you have a wa in the sentence, the next thing should be a ga if you want to use another topic marker. And that normally covers the topic versus subject. For example, watashi wa, I, neko ga suki desu. That's not a real rule, but it's a rule of thumb to make sure you don't accidentally say something that sounds awkward. Watashi wa neko wa suki desu is a little bit awkward. I am sure linguists will tell you, oh, but there's a reason that can happen. And there are reasons to have two was in a sentence, but typically don't. Start with a wa and with a ga. Okay? Now, it doesn't mean that there aren't other things that ga can do. Wa is only topic marker forever. It's all it does. It isn't anything else. But ga, oh, and by the way, for you beginners, you're like, oh my god, I can't believe you made that mistake. Oh my god. That's a ha. Yeah, that's just one small rule. Ha. It's read with a, the wa marker is read ha. Sorry. Okay, that's just a small rule. One more thing that ga can do is it can be a sentence connector. Something, 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 desu ga. It's like saying however. Okay? So don't let that confuse you. That's a whole different thing. That's another thing. It's a sentence connector, which we're not talking about. All right, then you got ni. Ni marks, it does two things. There's two things that ni does. Number one, it marks a location, and it marks a time. Or a time, a time. For example, I'm going at 3. 3時に行きます. I'm going to Tokyo. Tokyo ni ikimasu. And you can have them both in the same sentence. Tokyo ni, sorry, you didn't learn a time first. 3時に Tokyo ni ikimasu. But it doesn't matter. You can move the words anywhere in the sentence. It doesn't really matter. As long as the particle moves with it. Do you hear what I'm saying? The particle is always attached to the time if it's a time particle. If it's a wa marker, a topic marker, it's always attached to the topic. You can't leave it in place and then move it somewhere else. You have to keep it together. They're a set, okay? So, Tokyo ni 3時に ikimasu, you can have multiple ni's in a sentence, not a problem. Mo, I call this the inclusion marker. Me too, it's the me too marker. Watashi mo ikimasu. What's interesting about mo is it always replaces wa. You can't have watashi mo wa. It takes place of that. Watashi wa ikimasu. I'm going. And someone else goes, watashi mo ikimasu. I'm also going. It's a replacement. Not, gosh, I don't want to make hard, fast rules because they can be broken. But right now I can't think of a way that breaks. When you have a mo, you get rid of the wa. Ka. Ka is at the end of a sentence. When you're first learning Japanese, you'll learn that that's like the question mark. Ikimasu, I am going. Ikimasu ka? Anata wa ikimasu ka? Are you going? Hai, ikimasu. Yes, I am going. Then you have ka is another thing that ka does. It's a whole other particle. It just happens to also be ka. It's the or. It means or. Inu ka, neko ka. Inu or dog. Oops. Inu or cat. Oops. Dog or cat. Man, the Japanese is so normal for me. It's coming out as English. Then you have no. No is extremely powerful. It's very, very powerful. It's how you make possession. Watashi is I. Watashi wa is like saying I am. Watashi no is mine. And then you can say watashi no cola, my cola. Watashi no tomodachi, my friend. So that's the only way you can make possession. It really is putting no after, you can put it after your name too. Georgie-san no cola, George's cola. Also, remember we talked about ka coming at the end of sentences. Ikimasu ka, are you going? Well, no is also a question marker when you're talking about an informal verb or a casual verb. Iku also means to go. Iku no, are you going? And it can also be, iku no. Yeah, I'm going. Like a declarative type thing to end a sentence on. But that's a little bit too deep for this discussion. But these are just the things you're going to have to study. If I'm sort of, look at this daily as part one of your manual for quick things you need to really make sure that you understand. And you don't have to learn them all in, like, I wouldn't dare tell you to go learn wa, then ga, then ni, then mo, then ka, then no. Don't. You'll destroy yourself. Learn them and just know that it's like a checklist that you got to check off. And the last one, which is really, really common in Japanese, is the o. Oops, what did I just do? Okay. It's the o. It's written with a W-O character, and you hear some people say wo, but for the most part it's said o. It's like a shorter version of o, apparently. But this is the object marker. It marks objects. Indirect objects. I don't think it marks direct objects. But it doesn't really matter, does it? It marks objects. It marks the thing that an action is taking on. That the action is occurring to. You're eating because we've already used it, a dog. Inu o tabemasu. See how important the particles are? If you screw up the particles, you could say you're eating a dog instead of inu wa tabemasu. The dog will eat. Inu mo tabemasu. The dog will also eat. But it could also mean I'll also eat a dog, contextually. All right, those are particles. I'm going to take a nice break here. John Wingate II says direct objects. There's a real good reason why I wrote the Japanese from Zero books. Because about, I'm going to say 14 years ago, I was a tour guide, and I met a lot of people in the hotel business, and I made a lot of friends, and they always said to me, man, if I spoke Japanese, and then I was like, you know what, well, I'm going to teach it to you, and I opened up a classroom. And the first student that I had, I just went through flashcards with them, because I didn't have a good book yet. I was looking everywhere, and the books were sucky, in my opinion. They were either way too advanced, or they were way too messed up, like they used the wrong romaji when you didn't, like instead of CHI for chi, they'd use TI, or there was a bunch of problems with the book. So I started temporarily writing lessons. And that turned out to be a good thing, because it was the pace that I thought it should be done at. And one thing that I really like to do is teach grammar as if we were on the train or on a bus, or I bumped into you in the street and you said to me, hey, I have a question, what are particles? I just go, there's a few of them. I would do just like I'm doing right now. I would teach it casually, because you as human beings can understand the casual explanation much better than you can a really complicated one. Now, let's say we talked about this O marker for objects, right? Whether it's direct or indirect, does that immediately pop into your head as an understanding? It doesn't for me. Right now, I can't mentally wrap my head around, was it direct or indirect? I think in my book I say indirect, but does that mean it's not direct? Heck if I know. What's an indirect object anyway? I don't know. I really don't know. I don't know what past, present participles are either. And you don't have to. One thing I realized early on was books are way too complicated, because they're written by linguists and they got to impress their friends. Matter of fact, I'm listening to a tape right now. Not a tape. It's an audiobook that I downloaded. It's excellent. I highly recommend it for you guys that are totally into languages. If you're into languages, not if you're just learning Japanese. Because, it's maybe over your head. It's way complicated. It's called The Language Instinct by Stefan Keller, I think. But, man, it's burning my brain up, but it's fascinating. You probably would really get into it. But the words he's using are very high level. He even used the word copula, which I still to this day don't know. There's a book called Yokoso, and the very first chapter, it says, Des is a copula. Until this day, I don't know what they mean, because that's the only place I've ever heard copula. And there's a book that you can buy, I think it's in the Power Japanese series, called English Grammar for Students of Japanese. You shouldn't have to read that to learn Japanese. Wow, I went long. I'm sorry. I did not mean to go that long. Here's another power thing that you need to know. This is just an area of study you're going to need to learn right away. Des and janai. These two are extremely powerful in your beginning level of Japanese. Obviously, I assume you're learning words at the same time, like nouns and stuff like that. That's a given. Des means is, am, are, were, be, being, had, have. It means all of like the what they call the auxiliary verbs. It sort of covers them all. For example, George desu. I am George. George desu. He is George. If I'm pointing to a girl, she is George. George desu. Pointing to my dog. Let's say that it's not my dog, but let's say I'm pointing to my Coke and I've named my Coke George. George desu. It's Georgie. It's George. So that works. It covers all of those. It's all contextual. That's why you have a hard time walking into a Japanese conversation and understanding who they're talking about. And that's why, even though Japanese have anata, you, and watashi, I, and kanojo, her, and kare, him, they really don't use it as much as you would think. We use it all the time in English. We're constantly saying he, she, it. They don't in Japanese. So you need to know what des is, and you need to know what janai is. Janai makes des negative, and it comes before it. Janai des. It's not. Georgie janai desu. I am not George. Georgie janai desu. He is not George. Sounds like a sickness, right? Yeah, I'm sorry. Come down with a case of Georgie janai desu. Yeah. Should cure up. I'm taking some vitamin C. It should be better by next week. Kanojo wa. I don't have to say kanojo wa because desu can mean her. Georgie janai desu. She is not George. Georgie janai desu. It's not George. See how that works? That's what you need to learn. You also need to learn the past tense. Datta or deshita. Datta is informal. Deshita is more polite. And janai, janakatta. Alright? Not going to get too in depth, but those are the things I want you to do. Sit down, go to YesJapan, type in janai, and look at what lesson it's attached to and study it. If you don't want to do the order that we're doing it in. Alright? I'm going to go through, and honestly, I've only written down 2 verbs here, iku and wakaru, okay? But there are 10 essential verbs that you're going to need, like right away. It's just the things that you do every day. And I'm going to, just to show you how essential they are, I purposely have not memorized them. I'm just going to go through, let's see if we can get 10, right? Iku to go, kuru to come, wakaru to understand, taberu to eat, neru to sleep, kau to buy, uru is not so important. I'm going to put it on there because I have 7. Sell, hanasu to speak, aruku to walk, korosu to kill, because you never know when you're going to have to kill a bug. But those are not what I'd probably refine that to a couple more easier verbs that you do every day. But really, once you get 10 verbs down really well, the rest fall in place because they're all the same. They all fall into with a certain limited amount of patterns for conjugation. Japanese verb conjugation is very, very easy. Once you get the first 10 or so memorized, it's a pattern that you can get to. All right, that is the first part of the powerful Japanese grammar that you need to know in order to just quickly learn Japanese. Because I'm going to tell you right now, it's not hard. There's a guy in here. You saw him a few dailies back. He started with nothing, and in a year and 3 months, he was awesome. I don't remember what daily number it is, but look up for Jusuten. Justin des. There's been other guys that are totally phenomenal, trust me. I just was more blown away by Justin than anybody else because of his short time factor. But he says he loves Japanese so much he studies every day. If you do the same thing in a year, you could be pretty damn good. All right, today we are doing another Jiko Shokai. This time it's by a guy named Mark82. And this is, I'm not sure how long it is, let me see. Maybe about a minute long. And I'm going to set it up in the right player. And first we're going to look at it all the way through. Okay.
Konnichiwa.
Hang on, buddy. Hang on, I'm not ready yet. All right, this is Mark. And I'm going to pop him up on the screen. First we're going to, oops, did I do that right? Did that wrong. Come on. It's supposed to hook over. There we go. All right, we're going to watch it once, and then we are going to analyze.
こんにちは、マークと申します。カナダ人で29歳です。YesJapan のユーザー名はマーク82です。去年に、日本語を勉強し始めました。4年でコンピュータープログラマーとして働いています。日本語を勉強するのや車を運転するのが好きです。そして音楽を聴くのが大好きです。日本に行くときには日本語を少し話したいです。8ヶ月後に日本に行くつもりです。よろしくお願いします。バイバイ。
Very, very, very nice. You know what I like the most about Mark's introduction? First of all, very well timed, very well spaced. His voice is very easy to understand. His accent's excellent, and very few grammar mistakes. This is a really great start. You know, I just realized something. It's totally unrelated to this daily. In Eigo Egg number 4, we just did Haru's Jiko Shokai, and I got so excited about analyzing it, I forgot to talk about the things I saw in his room. It looked like he was in a little business office. He's got a copy machine on the right side of his room. On the left side of his room, he had a box from Amazon. Go look at the Eigo Egg number 4 and just jump up to the Jiko Shokai portion. Look at all the interesting things that are in his room. I don't even know. I didn't have time to analyze it all, but it looks like he's running a small business out of that room. Okay, and I only noticed, I want you to look at the back of Mark's, was it Mark or John? I'm sorry. Apologize. Mark. Sorry. 4 letters. He's got 2 guitars hanging there. That's pretty cool. Looks like 10-string. Those look like 10-string guitars. Holy moly. I need to hear more about that. You didn't even talk about that. How can you not talk about your 10-string guitar hanging in the back? By the way, a string in Japanese is gen. So let's say you have a 10-string guitar. It's a jugen guitar. But I'm not sure if such thing even exists. Might be a nanagen. We'll find out. Mark, 7, thank you. Mr. Roro, whose name is Rodney, he's a guitar player. He knows all about it. Okay, here we go.
こんにちは、マークと申します。
こんにちは、マークと申します。Crisp and clear. His voice is like almost made for cool Japanese speaking. マークと申します。It's like, melting.
カナダ人で29歳です。
カナダ人で29歳です。I'm Canadian and I'm 29. I love, now I don't know where he learned that construction. We talked about it, but I love how it seems like now all of the intros that are coming in, they're following the pattern, which I forget who said it. I think it was someone initially said it, and I pointed it out, and I think people have learned from that, and I'm so happy. And I don't know if he did, but maybe some of you do that. カナダ人で I'm Canadian and 29歳です。I'm 29. So sweet. I love the day connection there.
YesJapan のユーザー名はマーク82です。
YesJapan のユーザー名はマーク82です。Really? Is that not the coolest voice? I mean, Justin Dessa's voice was really cool. Seriously, you have the same caliber cool voice.
去年に
man, I'm just compliment after compliment, and then boom, you knock me out. You punch me in the face with this one. That's okay though. This is a common mistake that you made. Sorry, there's a weird delay that I don't see the punch until like 9 seconds later. So like I punched myself. Oh man, this is awkward. Ooh, getting dizzy. I can't look at that. You said kyonen ni, which effectively means on last year or in last year, which is weird, right? Drop the ni and you'll be perfect. Kyonen, that's it. Let's go back a little bit.
カナダ人で29歳です。YesJapan のユーザー名はマーク82です。去年に、日本語を勉強し始めました。
去年、日本語を勉強し始めました。Oh, man. I really hope that everyone is hearing, and I've seen this multiple 自己紹介 in a row, where it's し始めました. That is, I'm pretty sure that's like level 4 or level 5 type grammar, where you take a verb and you smash it into hajimeru to say I started. It's so nice. What? Last year? Hang on. Well, that went way back too far. Hang on. There should be a way to jump it up. Hang on. Oh my gosh. I ruined it. Hang on.
こにて29歳、ヤシのユーザー名はマークです。去年に、日本語を勉強し始めました。
So really, he's probably only been studying Japanese for like a year or so, which is, he's doing really well for just a year.
4年でコンピュータープログラマーとして働いています。
4年でコンピュータープログラマーとして働いてます。I think you need to say, hang on.
コンピュータープログラマーでコンピューター4年でコンピューター
Just say 4年間, get rid of the day, because what the day does is it says, it uses it as like I was able to be a programmer in just 4 years is what it sounds like you're saying. But that's not what you're saying. For example, you could say, 1年で日本語を話せるようになりました. In 1 year, I was able to learn Japanese. But that's not what you're saying. You're saying, 4年間コンピュータープログラマーとして働いてます. I've been working as a computer programmer for 4 years. That's what you're saying. Let's back it up.
勉強し始めました。
Here it is.
4年でコンピュータープログラマーとして働いています。
Now, I love the として働いてます that you used. I don't think we've had a として yet. I don't think anyone's used this grammar yet in the dailies. It's コンピュータープログラマーとして as a computer programmer 働いています. I am working. Beautiful for 4 years. I'm curious, is it PHP, C Sharp? What are you doing? Let me know.
日本語を勉強するのや車を運転するのが好きです。
Very nice. Very nice. Let's back that up a little bit. Listen again to the grammar.
働いています。日本語を勉強するのや
日本語を勉強するのや
車を運転するのが
see here. Does that sound right? I would. Here's what I'd like you to do, because I think you're doing a representative list. Maybe Toddy would be better here. Let's listen to that.
います。日本語を勉強するのや
日本語を勉強したり
車を運転するのが
車を運転したり
好きです。
するのが好きです。I like to do things like
として働いています。日本語を勉強するのや
日本語を勉強したり like study Japanese
車を運転するのが
and drive cars. I like to drive. I like to do things like drive and study Japanese. Excuse me, my eye is all of a sudden very, very itchy. Oh, heaven. Oh my gosh. Whew.
です。そして音楽を聴くのが大好きです。
そして音楽を聴くのが大好きです。And I love listening to music.
日本に行くときには
日本に行くときには just sounds like a samurai. The time when I go to Japan. When I go to Japan. 日本に行くときには
日本語を少し話したいです。
日本語を少し話したいです。It's very nice. It'd be cooler though, and much more advanced if you said 話す少し a little bit 話せるようになりたいです。I'd like to become able to speak a little bit of Japanese. That would sound really advanced.
8ヶ月後に日本に行くつもりです。
8ヶ月後に Did he say 後に? Really?
です。8ヶ月後に日本
Wow, 8ヶ月後, 8 months later. 8 months from now it also means too.
に行くつもりです。
日本に行くつもりです. I intend on going to Japan. You could also say 日本に行く予定です. Is it yote? You know, I always screw this up. Let me just bust open the very helpful. I think it's just yote, but I always want to say yote. I'm pretty sure it's just yote though. Yote, yeah. No ooze. Ooze, they always confuse me. And I want you to think about that just for a second. I'm 39. I went to Japan when I was 12. I got my first interpreting job when I was 17. 22 years of interpreting and tour guiding, and married to a Japanese girl for 16, speak Japanese every day, and I still want to add a "u" to a word that doesn't have one. So much confusion.
よろしくお願いします。バイバイ。
Oh man, I just want to say this again. Really like your accent. And it could be that your accent's not amazing, but it is. But because you're so slow, not slow, you're doing what I wish I could do, because I have a tendency when I'm with Japanese people to speak fast. Faster than I want to. And that's a habit I think that foreigners pick up, because they are overcompensating for people speaking slow to them. Because what happens is, if your Japanese is fairly new, well, they speak slow to you, and you're like, they're like, that's what it sounds like to me, even though it's not, that doesn't make any sense. And you're like, and this is another thing too. You, as a foreigner speaking Japanese, there's two things that tend to happen. One, you get fast. Two, you start saying really complicated, and you get complicated things, and you say slangy stuff because you want to prove that you speak Japanese. You don't have to. It just makes you look a little bit dickish. So let's avoid that. Alrighty, well, thank you very much. I certainly appreciate that phenomenal self-introduction. And we will be meeting up in about 5 minutes in the YesJapan chat room to do a short Ask a Teacher Live, where I answer your questions, or at least I try to answer your questions about Japanese. I will see you then. Ja.